On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger along. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Up north, on a strip of sandy soil, lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just a place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 Norfolk.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to remind our viewers that our meetings are web streamed and televised, and for those in attendance, I would ask that you please ensure that your phones are in silence mode. Today is the first of 2 budget days. We will be stopping at 11 a.m., I hope, to hear 2 deputations. I would note the second deputation is on a matter not actually before us today, the setting of the tax class rates. That will be a later report after the province sets the school board levy rates. So I encourage you all to ask questions of this deputation. However, if we could try to not spend too much time on the matter today, it would be helpful. One request I have as we move into the discussion of the agenda, I've just requested if we could move the water and budget rate discussions until either later in the day or tomorrow. So other than that change, could I have a motion to approve the agenda or any discussion? Moved by Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Geisens. All in favor? And that's carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Ms. Huffman.
Declaration of interest, meeting type council budget, agenda item ECS, administration salaries and benefits. I, Councillor Huffman, declare potential indirect pecuniary interest to the above noted item for the following reasons. My daughter is an employee.
Thank you, Ms. Huffman. Anything further? Okay. So the first thing we're coming to is a staff report, FS 19-03, regarding the proposed 2019 levy-supported operating budget. Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Kathy LaPlante has prepared a very good presentation which takes us through the background of preparing the budget for today, as well as other slides with other information on it for to prepare you for the budget for the next 2 days. So I won't have an introductory long speech or anything in the interest of time. However, I expect a lot of discussion through the presentation. I would like to take this opportunity, though, to thank all the departments and divisions that have participated in preparing the budget for today, and of course the financial services staff. They've all worked very hard to bring you that big thick binder in front of you. So I wanted to say that off the bat. So having said that, I will turn the microphone over to Kathy LaPlante for the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Chop and members of council.
I'm sorry, I'm new. I just realized this would probably have been the point where would have done the opening remarks and so on. So that was my error. I just kind of got thrown off with the staff report component there, but bear with me. My apologies. So it is my understanding that traditionally the mayor and CAO both deliver opening remarks, but it looks like you've just got me today. So when I started preparing for these budget deliberations, I ran an online search with the search term municipal budget creep. And the first article that popped up was titled Municipal Mission Creep. Local officials bear plenty of blame for booming budgets. So I clicked on it. The opening paragraph read as follows. Harold Shumansky couldn't believe what he found in his mailbox earlier this month. He knew it was time to pay taxes to the town of Ellington, but the bills for his 4 taxable properties arrived not together, but in 4 separate envelopes, each of course bearing its own stamp. It is an example thousands of taxpayers from every corner of the Nutmeg State could provide. Nutmeg State, I learned, is Connecticut. Municipal government policies that waste revenue and perpetuate inefficiencies in ways that would seldom be permitted in the private sector. It is also an example that thousands of taxpayers from every corner of Norfolk could provide you as well. a waste of resources and an inefficient practice that would never be permitted in the private sector. I'm going to warn you all now that my opening remarks may be a bit harsh. So before I continue, I would like to first say a big thank you, especially to James and Kathy and the rest of your finance team, as well as senior leadership, for all of the hard work that I know that you have put into this year's budget. I know it's not an easy task, and I know you are following direction. That said, while I wish I could sugarcoat my words, in the face of what is really a proposed 8.6% increase to the budget for county operations, I just can't. Throughout the campaign, I regularly cited the budget deficit that Norfolk County had been running year over year during previous council. The naysayers all said I was wrong. Look at the audited statements, they said. See, we ran a surplus. But we all know now I wasn't. Your taxes were artificially being kept low by depleting our reserves. Just the other day, I asked what our deficit was for 2018 and wanted a report by department so we could see where there were budget overruns last year. We are in the third week of January, after all, but no one could give me a budget deficit report. This astounds me, and it should astound you too. This is the year 2019. Accounting software has never been more sophisticated, and our software, Norfolk software, is among the best. We are going into budget deliberations. I think it is my job and your job to know which departments went over budget last year and why. Also to this point, and often talked about throughout the campaign, is the fact that Norfolk County does not provide councilors with regular budget variance reporting. Make no mistake, the board members of any other $230 million corporation would receive a monthly report on each and every one of their departments so that department heads can be held accountable. After these budget deliberations, councilors, it is incumbent upon you to demand that we be provided this information. This isn't a want, this is a need. To that end, I will also make a motion in the coming days that our councilors and myself be directed to be given access to our financial software and training so that we can navigate through it to not only understand, but uphold our duties of providing oversight and accountability for the taxpayers. This will become a transparent organization, and councilors will have access to that information. During council orientation and in subsequent meetings, I was clear, crystal clear, as were others, that this council would demand more detail than had previously been provided. We said we wanted information and breakdowns on things like training budgets and legal expenses. We wanted information on out-of-province travel. We wanted to see historical trends. And yet, despite asking over and over again, as far back as orientation, none of this has been provided. Before I am accused of asking too much or wasting staff time, on the desk in front of you, I have a little package. I have provided you a copy of the Training and Development Report from 2018. If everybody could please open their package. One click on an accounting software and out this comes. No flipping of the pages just yet. The sheet stapled behind it Amy, could you help direct here? Was there a misorder? Okay, so the first page is the legal. Okay, you're all looking at the training and budget report for the 2018 budget. This is one click of a button on a computer system. The first page, if you'll flip back over, is the legal services for the entire county operation in 2017 and 2018. One page, one click, and that comes out. Now, I believe in the past few days, my cries have been heard, and I am told by Mr. Johnson that we do have some information regarding these training budgets coming before us today. Councilors, I continue to ask for your patience, but I promise I have a point. Before you is the proposed levy for 2019 mayor and council services taken from this budget binder, from this year's budget binder. Do you have the mayor and council services? If somebody could please indulge me, would you like to take a stab at the subcategories of services? Ms. Huffman? Any idea of what goes into services? On the next page, you'll see the 2017 levy for mayor and council services. Could somebody please tell me what goes into the buckets for services?
Rent, leases, professional consulting services, advertising, contracted services, seminar training, maintenance, and repair services.
Thank you. Had I not seen the budget for 2017, I myself would not have known what budget boxes went into services in Norfolk County. None of my requests are unreasonable, nor are they time-consuming. Taxpayers paid thousands of dollars for software, and they are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for staff and for you and I. At the start of every division section, you will also see an org chart in your binders. The number of subordinates ranges from 3 to 5. According to modern-day organizational experts, in an effective organization, a supervisor should have 15 to 20 subordinates. Org charts with a narrow span like the ones we are seeing are more expensive because of the high cost of management staff. They lead to less empowerment and more micromanagement, and they tend to result in communication difficulties and excessive distance between top and bottom levels in the organization. With a wide span and more subordinates to a manager, this results in a more flexible and flatter organization, which encourages employee empowerment by giving them more responsibility, delegation, and decision-making power. 15 to 20 may not be our target. It may be somewhere in between. But I do know that 3 to 6 is not doing morale amongst our low-level employees any favors, and it's definitely not doing the taxpayers of Norfolk any favors either. In fact, the number of Norfolk County frontline customer-facing employees that have come to me privately because they feel it is their duty as a concerned taxpayer speaks volumes. Restructuring will not happen at these deliberations, but counselors, this too is not a want, it is a need. In 2012, Norfolk County's staffing complement was 729 full-time equivalents, excluding water, wastewater, library, and police. That year, the county raised taxes 1.8%. They ran a surplus, and they added 3 new full-time equivalent positions. Today, we are being asked to pass on to our constituents up to an 8.6% tax increase, less growth, less a possible reduction in the education tax levy, and yet we are being asked to add 12 new full-time equivalent positions. 30-something plus positions are currently advertised on the county website. The time for a real hiring freeze is now, with positions to be filled on an as-council approved basis. Again, this is not a want, this is a need. We have heard over and over again from our former CAO that Norfolk County has a revenue problem and not an expense problem. I'll agree in part because I too want to have the capital to actually be able to do things and get worthwhile projects off the ground that will contribute to our future and the future of others. But we have to get our expenses in line first. If we don't, we are only throwing more good money after bad. On the revenue side, just last night, we heard a presentation from a developer that has been trying to build here, but has been held up in the site plan control process for 5 years. Now, for argument's sake, let's just say they are another 2 years away from completion. That's easy math. They told us they were paying approximately $10,000 a year in taxes currently on their vacant land. That's $70,000 of taxes in Norfolk County's coffers. Now imagine that they had their site plan control completed in a couple of months for a project of that scope. 30 days is the legislated requirement, but let's assume a revision or 2. Then let's say it took them 2 years to build. A commercial development like that is likely going to be taxed somewhere in the vicinity of $100,000 a year. That's nearly $500,000 Norfolk County just lost forever. That's not even accounting for the 60 to 90 jobs they say their project will generate for Norfolk, as well as the spin-offs that will flow from that. You want revenue? There is revenue out there. This isn't an isolated example. It's classic Norfolk, and cleaning it up is the reason you and I were elected. You want to sell me on a tax increase? Sell it to me next year. This budget is about the first step to making some hard decisions and getting our budget and our expenses in line. Some of these decisions are hard and they aren't fun, but you have a responsibility to the constituents that elected you. As a parting note, also before you is a copy of last year's Reformer article following the budget deliberations. It was emailed to me by a constituent. I encourage you to read it on your break. The headline, "Jiffy Budget at Norfolk Council," is not a headline to be proud of, and not one I want to read on Friday morning. What I was proud of is when Doug Brunton and Noel Height were told they couldn't have access to information and that they were wasting too much time, and they responded with a $400,000 cut to materials and supplies. Good things take time. These are regular working days for our staff. We can and we will take all of the time necessary to do our job. Next year will be far easier because these budget binders are never going to look the same again, at least under my term. This is the time for each of us to demonstrate financial leadership and the sustainability of Norfolk County. It's time we start running Norfolk the way that it should be. Thank you. With that, sir, I will turn it over to you.
With that, I will turn it over to Kathy.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Chop and members of council. The overview presentation today includes highlights from the budget document you received back in mid-December. It is the last of two budgets prepared for Norfolk County. By two, I mean, as the Board of Health, you will be reviewing the public health budget provided under separate cover, and as council reviewing the levy-supported operating budget, which includes the public health budget. Again, there are a number of slides included in the package, so please stop me at any time if you have any questions or if you require further information. We'd be glad to get that information. Again, as Mayor Chop was talking about, there is a lot of information. What to provide up front and spend in the presentation was definitely expanded this year, but there may still be items that council wishes to see that hasn't been included.
Something I forgot to mention earlier is a little bit about the format and the logistics today. We will have the presentation on this screen, and then we'll also, after the presentation, we'll have a document up there which is sort of a running total of what the tax levy effect is on the median household. On your monitors, I did talk to Mayor Chop the other day, and we will be putting our budget software on those monitors. So if you want to drill down to a certain level, we can look at that information in order for you to make decisions with this year's budget.
Okay, to continue, this slide illustrates that Norfolk County is not a small business. Norfolk County provides many services and owns substantial assets and infrastructure that require replacing over time. The first item which Council has addressed back early in January was the capital budget. Approved for the capital budget in the year for 2019 was just $52.6 million. We then reviewed the rate budget, which has been deferred and which we'll be discussing over the next 2 days at $18.4 million. Today, the levy-supported budget, which provides the day-to-day operations of the county's levy-supported services. It is a plan. It includes estimate. It includes and covers all the divisions, departments, governance, and administration of the county. It also includes maintenance, infrastructure, and it provides for health and safety, for services provided to our county. For example, winter control, there are standards for snow plowing, etc. It also includes costs related to leisure, recreation, land use planning, and it also includes the Consolidated Municipal Service Manager Services that is shared between Haldeman and Norfolk. It provides funding for amortization of costs of operating capital. It includes capital projects funded from levy contributions and also contributions to reserves and reserve funds. It also incorporates the recently approved user fees and service charges. Back in December, Council approved, with the exception of a number of user fees that will be brought forward back, I believe, mid-February for Council's consideration. So, of course, the levy-supported budget is the result of the process which sets the tax rates for Norfolk County residents. The total that is proposed is just over $163 million. It also includes requests for operating capital from our boards and agencies for a total of $6.6 million. So overall, the total municipal operating capital budgets for Norfolk County is just over almost $250.7 million. This slide graph was presented at the Economic Outlook meeting that we held last November 23rd. I just wanted to clarify that this graph is a result of us participating in the MBA study, which is provided by a third-party consultant that many municipalities do take part in. This is just one page of this study, and it contains many more statistics, and I believe the most updated study is included on Norfolk County's website. But generally, this graph ranks Norfolk County residential tax rates below averages. It also, Norfolk County's municipal tax rates are at or below the survey averages for all property classes. The next couple slides just are some general comments related to assessment and tax impacts. From year to year for 2019, our assessment has been revised based on current value assessment provided by Impact. For the returned rule from 2018 to 2019 was $654.1 million, and of that, $184.4 million, or 1.99%, was related to assessment growth, and the balance represents current value assessment. And the assessment is also adjusted by any adjustment as a result of assessment appeals. Just since we have a lot of new members of council, the tax rates are generally finalized in April when a tax policy report is approved. The education tax rates are an estimate. Generally, we've seen a trend for many years, the education tax rates being reduced. We have included an education tax rates when we are estimating the residential property average tax rate. I believe the percentage that we used was 1.7, which was the trend over the last few years. The next slide is, the increases are phased in over 4 years. For property owners, the decreases are effective immediately. Increased current value assessments for 2009 taxation over 2018 are generally considered inflationary increases and are not treated as assessment growth. And when we're looking at the revised tax base, we have to reduce and remove the impact of CVA. This eliminates a windfall tax revenue from increased current value assessments. This results in a revenue neutral impact on changes in current value assessments. Again, when we met in November, we showed this slide also, so this is just another quick review, overview that Norfolk County budget preparations begin very early in the year. Operating departments prepare their preliminary requests based on the current approved service levels, adjusted for any impacts as a result of approved prior year's operating capital expenditures or increased usage and volume. Divisions and departments have worked together in order over this period of time to produce what we feel is a responsible and reasonable budget. So just some general information for Norfolk County. The operating budget actually serves as a number of different tools. The first item, it serves as a policy tool. The annual budget reflects choices made by council related to the needs of Norfolk County, priorities, goals, and matches resources against these needs, priorities, and goals. Resources are limited, so the annual budget will reflect those choices. It also is a financial planning tool. The budget establishes the basic guidelines that the county uses to control expenditures and track revenues. It is also an operating guide. The budget identifies work plans and goals to be achieved for each division in the upcoming year. And finally, the budget document is one of many methods to communicate various demands, needs, and constraints and resources, including opportunities presented to Norfolk County. In the end, communicates the choices and direction made. Also in the document, you'll see what we have built in is an overall inflation rate on a number of areas related to materials, supplies, and services. The percentage rate that was used was the 2.1%, that if you recall when we presented the user fees, we used a 2.1% inflationary increase. Overall salaries reflect the effects of negotiated agreements, bargaining agreements, estimated changes to upcoming bargaining agreements, and any change related to Bill 148 and the tax exemption for council members. As mentioned earlier, user fees and service charges as approved in December and based on anticipated uses and volumes have been included in this budget also. There are you'll notice when we get into the details, the federal and provincial line is a line item under the revenues that funding is generally based on either confirmations from ministries, funding levels, or anticipated funding levels. There are many, when we start going through the budget, there are many areas that we do not have confirmation yet of the funding levels. So staff have either reviewed or tried to conversations and made their best guess whether or not they should increase the contribution levels, reduce the contribution funding levels, or again, remain at the same level. It also includes funding for new infrastructure, maintenance and asset replacement costs. When we review the drivers later on, you'll notice that is a large driver for what's included in the 2009 proposed budget for council to consider. There are provincial and federal mandated programs included. And investment income is based on estimated cash balances and interest rates. Also included, as I mentioned, requisitions from boards. We'll be looking at council-approved initiatives from last year, and we'll also be looking for requests for new budget initiatives are included also. These are all included separately, and they're all here for council to consider. Just generally, once the budget has been approved throughout the year, I'm not sure if we've actually had this situation in January, but throughout the year, if there is something that comes up that the budget needs to be amended, there are reports that will be presented to council to consider amending the budget. The next slide, just back on the last slide, just as a rule of thumb, county has generally said we generally don't use one-time revenues for ongoing expenditures, as this generally creates an impact for the following year. However, one-time revenues we have used for non-recurring expenditures, subject, of course, to council approval. So the next slide is included in our budget document, our interdepartmental charges. And the recoveries, which generally are charges allocated to divisions throughout Norfolk County for services provided by other Norfolk County divisions. As a result, corporately, interdepartmental charges balance to zero.
Can I stop you and ask you a question? I just want to understand this a little bit better and how this is working here. Can you explain why the recoveries are not matching the charges in the departments? Or you're saying that the charges, perhaps I just figured that out. Some are a charge and the other is what you're from the other direction coming at you. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
So the interdepartmental charges include charges for support service, for example, human resource charges, payroll, financial services, IT, legal, etc. It also includes equipment charges for computers, fleet equipment for rentals of pickup, etc., and office space and facility maintenance. They're important to, interdepartmental charges are important to charge to ensure costs are allocated to services provided, which will ensure that we are maximizing and offsetting user fees and funding, and to maximize our funding received from provincial and federal governments. You'll notice also that the rate overall in the levy budget, there is a difference, and what the levy budget is charging is higher than what we are recovering from divisions. That is because the levy budget also charges the rate budget, which is a separate budget. But overall, if you balance both operating budgets, all interdepartmental charges come down to zero. The other area I just wanted to touch on a little bit was shared services. Some of the councillors have met at the Health and Social Services Committee and reviewed the budget submitted at that for the proposed health and shared services. Just a little bit of background. In 2001, Norfolk County was awarded or designated the CMSM, the Consolidated Municipal Service Manager for shared services for Haldeman Norfolk. It included housing services, social assistant, ODSP, and childcare. For 2001, it was provincially mandated how we shared our costs, and then there was the ability to agree between Haldeman and Norfolk on how to share costs. Over the years, there was no agreement, and so we went to arbitration in 2010, and the first chart is the results of the arbitration, which directed how we would share costs. These costs now have been reconciled up into 2017. We work closely with Haldeman County staff on the costs and how we're sharing the costs. Obviously, since 2010, the province introduces many different programs that may not fall directly within the arbitration. So Haldeman and Norfolk County staff do come to an agreement on what the most fair and equitable sharing method is for each one, so that there's one is not being, that there becomes an unbalance on how we're sharing the costs. The second chart is just showing for 2017 for the different areas, housing services, social assistance, childcare, and public health, how we are sharing and allocating costs between Haldeman and Norfolk. Okay, the next slide is just a quick summary of the proposed levy-supported operating budget. Our preliminary submission to SLT was $94.4 million. Levy impact is 12.1. SLT did review and met with staff, and in the end, our proposed budget presented to council is 91.5 or 8.6, and reduced from 7.6% to 4.7%.
Just a question there, Kathy. Getting to that 4.7, part of that comes from a proposed reduction in the education tax levy. Is there any further word on what that's going to be, or how did you come up with that number?
We looked at the trend over. Generally, we have had some information from the province, but from the ministry, but at this point in time we haven't. So we looked at the trend over the last few years and used an average to bring in 1.7.
So it's kind of a high certainty that that's going to be the number, or?
To you, Madam Mayor, it's based on historical reductions, and so it's the most educated amount we can put there at this point. We could, if you'd like, we can be more conservative with it. However, we found when we do put that reduction in, it's very close once we do get the information.
All I want is I just want to make sure that councillors understand that 4.7% number is based on an anticipated reduction, part of that may or may not occur. So in order to get down from the 8.6%, we're taking off for growth, and we're taking off for a proposed potential reduction to the education levy to get to 4.7. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, the next slide table outlines the history of the tax levies and assessment growth since 2013. The net tax levy is the net cost required to operate the county to provide all local approved municipal services, or in other words, it is the amount of tax dollars needed to run our business. It's not the tax rate. It increases and ranges from 2.7 to 5.8 and then 8.6 proposed for 2019. The average residential tax rate takes into the levy requirement, CBA changes, appeal results, and growth. The rates over the same time period range from 0.8% to 2.3% and 4.7% proposed for 2018. As you can see from this table, the positive assessment changes as a result of growth impacts the overall tax rate. The next slide is just, again, a history of the approved staffing for FTEs from 2014. We have included 2 levels of FTEs. We've summarized them, all FTEs, excluding health and social services, and health and social services as a separate. We generally do that just because there's so many, the majority of positions within health and social services are heavily funded. So the details of the by department and division, though, is included in your budget document under tab 2. Okay, to get into the actual proposed document that you've been reviewing over the last month or so, we started off with the base tax levy for Norfolk County, a levy requirement of just over $84.26 million. There were prior decisions related to some phase-in back in 2006. I believe we have one more year, so you should see 2001. Again, there'll be these impacts. It was related to increased management costs, fire protection service costs, and leachate costs. These phase-ins we actually phased in the costs, offset the costs from reserve contributions to ease, instead of, for example, the waste management cost in 1 year would have been an increase from Haldeman County. It ended up being $2.3 million. Council at the time felt that was too hard of a hit for the residents of Norfolk County, so they utilized the waste management, or the solid waste reserve fund to phase in the impact. There's also uncontrollable costs such as utilities, decreases in ministry fundings of approximately 1.8, which represents an increase of 2.1% on the levy impact. There's some council and departmental controllable expenses of $3.3 million for a 3.9% increase. In addition, the proposed requisitions from boards and agency. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I just want to add something for the controllable adjustments. Obviously, that's the biggest chunk there. And I just want to bring council's attention that there are items in there that we've adjusted for this year's budget where historically we just have not met that mark. One example is in our own department, we charge interest for overdue taxes. And historically, we've had a budget of 1.4 million. However, because we've have a really good control over overdue taxes, we're not getting that interest income anymore. So there's a reduction in there related to that. Another example is Provincial Offences Act fines. We've budgeted a certain amount every year, and we just have not been able to meet that dollar amount. So there's an adjustment in there related to that as well. And this is an attempt to try to prevent future deficits, and also included in that $3.3 million amount is the increase in reserve contributions that we're asking for.
And also, as far as the base budget, we had mentioned earlier, we do have a requisition from our boards and agency, basically the library, the police services board, LPRCA, and the GRCA, of $529,700 for an increase of 0.6%. Basically, this is what we call our adjusted budget. It's basically the business as usual. These are the funds that are required to operate the county and to provide the same level of services provided. Staff, when they were reviewing their budgets, they looked at 4 efficiencies. There may be, at this point in time when the budget was developed, they may have been in the process of reviewing some services, et cetera. As those efficiencies are found, they will be built into either through a budget amendment throughout the year or at the next following 2020 proposed budget. Just a little overview of the council-approved initiatives. The council-approved initiatives are included under separate cover. And there is a detailed list of information related to the council-approved initiatives. And again, these are based on reports that were presented to council throughout 2018, and they were approved after the 2018 budget was approved. We also have, and it is identified in a separate column also in the budget document. The new budget initiatives are also identified separately. We do have a ranking system that we have utilized for a number of years to rank our priorities. They're submitted by departments with some justifications on the requests to SLT. There are many of them that are removed, or many of them that do not make the package. Anything that's ranked a 1, 2, or 3 has been included in the document that's called NBIs and CAIs, and it's under separate cover. Again, these will be for council to review and to consider. NBIs for the library purposes are included also in the proposed budget. So when we look at the total council-approved initiatives, they total $460,700, or 0.5% of the levy, total tax levy. And new budgeted initiatives total $468,500, again 0.6% of the tax levy, for a total request of just over $91.5 million, or 8.6%. And as Mayor Chop had mentioned earlier, that 8.6 is also reduced by assessment growth of 1.99%. Again, the next couple of charts, council did see, based on 2018, when we met back on November 23rd. As you can see, for major expenditures, the driver of our expenditures, the most significant one is the salaries and benefits. It represents 36%. The next area are transfer payments and grants. The transfer payments, majority of them would be related to client services in the OW area for 25%. So you'll see that there'll be some offsetting revenue for that when we look at revenues. And at 18% for material, supplies, and services, and infrastructure represents 11%. Major revenue sources, again, the major revenue sources are tax levy. Federal and provincial grants represent 34%, and then small portions that are from fees and service charges, which represents only a minor amount of 7%. The next slide, again, council did see this slide, and it's just basically to reiterate that we're required to prepare balanced budgets, basically taking our operating and capital expenditures and any other revenue, and produces our tax levy, which is generally the largest source of revenue.
Can you go back to the previous slide? All right, so Section 290 of the Municipal Act, I wanted to bring that to council's attention. Basically, what that says is if you have a deficit in a year, the following year's budget needs to pay for that deficit. Now, what Norfolk County has been doing in the past is using our contingency reserve to fund the deficits that have been occurring. As a result, our contingency reserve is down to about $1.5 million. And if you take a look at our previous few years' deficits, if we have another year like that, our contingency reserve will be depleted. And so therefore, in the future, then we don't have a reserve to fund any deficits, so it will be on any future tax levies. So I wanted to make sure council is aware of that, that section of the Municipal Act.
Can I ask one question? Salaries and benefits, materials and supplies, I understand all that, but when we look at expenditures, I mean, it's almost a little bit misleading, is it not, to have interdepartmental, at the end